Bienvenue à tous. It's time for our international press review in the papers. Today with Catherine Spencer. Catherine, always a pleasure to see you. Where would you like to start?
Well, first of all, I'm going to start with the British media and how they've covered the cyclone which has hit Burma. The Guardian, the headline says that Burma seeks emergency aid as cyclone kills at least 10,000 people, although we know now that that's considerably higher. I think the last estimates I read were about 15,000.
And rising, apparently.
And rising. The big part that the front page focuses on is the fact that the military junta has asked for outside assistance. Now, this is an unprecedented move. In the 2004 tsunami, they didn't do that. So it's historically significant and obviously helps hint at the scale of the damage. The Independent also focuses on it. The headline is "The Wind of Change," and it talks about the prior state making an unprecedented plea for international help. So it's got a tougher tone. And there's an article inside by Peter Popham which says that the junta's acting out of self-preservation rather than compassion. And going on from, he says that a natural disaster like this is a moment of reckoning for the authoritarian regime. Now he gives a little bit of background. He says the junta justifies its military regime because it argues that Burma is in a permanent state of emergency because of the risk from secessionist groups on its borders. But it says that now it's got this real-life, full-scale emergency. Its strong-arm tactics that it used last September's in the anti-government protests won't work. So it's been forced to call on. Initially, the junta did nothing, and on Monday, however, official estimates of how many people died jumped from 400 to 4,000 and then up to 10,000, so just in the space of a few hours. So it shows how the junta realised that staying quiet, its normal tactics simply weren't going to work. But Popham says that the junta's decision to do so is certainly self-serving. They want to try and prevent any kind of unrest, any kind of revolt, because if they don't do something, there's quite likely to be a popular revolt in the country. So this is really to avoid that.
And indeed, that headline in The Independent there, "The Wind of Change in Burma," very much laced with irony, but
it's an unusual. I think it's quite an unusual headline.
Certainly.
Okay, now moving on to French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Now, we were looking at an article in the Swiss daily Le Temps, and it was a year to the day that Nicolas Sarkozy swept to power, promising to write a new chapter in French history.
I can see him now running down the Champs-Élysées to go and shake hands. Carry on.
Well, absolutely. Well, Le Temps has, going on from his sort of wanting to write a new chapter in French history, it's set out his first year in office so far in a series of acts. And the first one, it says, is it looks at his excessive confidence, how he swept into power with this kind of very bling-bling. He was like a sort of celebrity personality rather than a head of state. He, straight after being elected, he was off on yachts.
Presidential version of 50 Cent, I think somebody said at one stage.
I think that's quite a good analogy. And then it just looks at, how he went from sweeping in on this literally on this big wave on this luxury yacht to falling from grace in the eyes of French voters. And it talks about how, it moves on to his personal life, about how obviously divorcing Cecilia, a very high-profile romance with model and singer Carla Bruni, coupled with his sort of continuing to live this bling lifestyle, but at the same time saying there's absolutely no money left in France. Do they think it's a
good thing or a bad thing?
Well, they're saying that it didn't help his popularity at all, so
OK, just kind of assesses it completely.
Okay.
Catherine, thank you. We ran out of time there, but believe me, that was very entertaining. And if that doesn't inspire you to go and buy a newspaper, nothing else will. You're watching France 24. Stay with us.